What's the plan for Randal Grichuk? Is he going to be an interesting option for the Rockies, or does he find himself in a rocky place?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 29th day of December in the year 2022. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, good news. You're in the right spot because that's what we do around here. You can hang out with me and all sorts of great Rockies fans like Nicholas Delvo here in the Locked On Rockies YouTube live chat. When you subscribe to Locked On Rockies on YouTube, you'll know when we go live. You can ask your questions in the live chat, and we can answer your questions. We can go over some things. And I'm actually going to answer a question from a YouTuber, a YouTube comment in segment number 3 today. It's kind of a random one, but this viewer seems to be very concerned about this topic. So we'll get to that at the in segment number 3, but we're going to spend the vast majority of today's show talking about Randal Grichuk and his role for the Colorado Rockies in 2023. Purple Row writes about it, so we'll go read from them, and I'll kind of give my take on a player that can have some interesting impact for the Rockies and did have some moments where he kind of did shine, but it's just a matter of, is it enough? There's a lot of players, and Randal Grichuk falls right into that category of Rockies players. Is it enough to give them the playing time over just going with your prospects and giving them as much major league bats and game time as possible? So we are going to talk about that, but thank you for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, and proud to be part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every single day. We head to Purple Row. Skylar Timmons writes, what do we do with Randal Grichuk? The offseason has been fairly uneventful for the Colorado Rockies. Sure, they have been more active in the years past with a smorgasbord of minor league deals, trades, and a couple of major league acquisitions, but nothing that points the needle to a substantially better year in 2023. For all intents and purposes, the Rockies are likely to run out a squad quite similar to the 2022 team with some minor substitutions. And here is the case against Grichuk. As Timmons says, I found myself a little more hesitant about Grichuk to the point where I think the 2023 Rockies should keep him on the roster. And it's no question that Grichuk's first season in Colorado was a little lackluster. The power the Rockies had hoped for just wasn't there like was expected, because it fits into the same mold as 2021 Grichuk in Toronto. The most notable culprit was the overabundance of ground balls that sapped his production potential. With a career-high 50.4% ground ball rate, Grichuk lost many opportunities due to the ground, and it's something that Grichuk was well aware of, and it confused him. Yeah, it's definitely higher than before, he told Purple Road during a post-game interview, though he's unsure as to why. I don't know. It's one of those things that you just kind of see and ask people and see if there's something mechanically, or just work on lifting the ball a little more in the offseason. Another significant factor that impacted this season was his road numbers. Like the majority of the roster, Grichuk suffered on the road to the tune of a 205 average with 74 strikeouts and a ground ball rate of 45.8% in 257 plate appearances. Despite putting up strong numbers at Coors Field, an inability to produce on the road plagued Grichuk like so many others. Strikeouts became a problem with his inconsistent power. For most of the year, Grichuk averaged about 3 home runs a month. He slugged 9 home runs in the first half, followed by 10 homers in the final couple months. Sure, he had a modest amount of doubles, but when the Rockies' intention was for Grichuk to provide more pop in their lineup, especially with Coors Field playing a factor, his slugging was a sore disappointment. Grichuk's failures in 2022 came to be interpreted in one of two ways: sheer bad luck in his first season with a new team with unique challenges, or an indication he is a veteran in steep decline that the team needs to move on from for the youngsters. If we go with option 2, it's the intent of making room for players like Nolan Jones, Michael Toglia, Brenton Doyle, or even Zach Veen, so they can get time in the outfield with a chance to produce in 2023. Plus, they come at much cheaper price that can be turned into another pitcher, perhaps. Moving Grichuk opens up outfield flexibility for the future, something the Rockies are quite keen on for the years to come. Again, that is from Purple Rose, Skylar Timmons writing that. That is the perfect summary. You give Randal Grichuk should be treated as your starting right fielder, and as the veteran should be given that option. We've talked a lot about letting the prospects play. We've talked about what the roster will look like. We talked about a lot of these prospects making and being on the major league roster right away. Toglia maybe not so much, but Randal Grichuk deserves to be your starting right fielder because he is the veteran and he has shown some flashes. But he can't go out on the road and bat 204 with 74 strikeouts. It seems very nitpicky to go at Grichuk like this. That, like Skylar mentioned, it wasn't just Grichuk that was bad on the road. It was the Rockies in general, but Randal Grichuk didn't hit his expectations. The expectation for Randal Grichuk was for him to come and put the ball over the fence, and that's not what he did. He hit the ball on the ground most in his entire career. That's not a good sign. Now, I kind of lean a little bit with Skylar's point of I think he's a little unlucky. I think the change, I think the transition, I think coming over, I think with a lot of kind of moving pieces and the Rockies kind of going all over the place, Randal Grichuk is going to be more comfortable and a stronger option for the Rockies. And I am interested to see what bringing in the new hitting coach will do for a player like Grichuk, who seems like he really needs someone to help kind of crack this code of why he's hitting the ball on the ground so much. He really needs someone he can work with to dive into that. That's where I think Grichuk should be given the opportunities, but they also should be limited. Randal Grichuk's leash and Randal Grichuk's amount of playing time has to vary on his play. It does you no good to clog up your outfield by playing. I mean, it's good to keep Grichuk as a bench piece and the depth, sure, but you also have the young guy depth, and you're already going with the young guy lineup, and it seems all likely that the Rockies aren't intending on going too crazy this offseason and are kind of not admitting it, but by admitting it through their actions, going with the similar type of team that they had last year. So there's no point in running Grichuk out there if he struggles if he struggles out the gate, and by the time the trade deadline comes, he hasn't got it going. There's no reason for Grichuk to remain. Because if Grichuk hasn't gotten it going, that means the Rockies probably still don't have a ton of power in the lineup. And so that means the Rockies are probably not doing that great. Randal Grichuk hitting for more power and scoring more runs is going to make the Rockies win more games. It's kind of I feel like an obvious thing. If this Rockies team can get more power in its lineup, they will win those close games that they have been losing the past couple of seasons. And so Grichuk will be a part of that because that is the idea of what Grichuk was going to do. But if he's not doing that for you, there is no reason to continue to turn to him and go after and just run your wheels into the ground when you can easily just try to find a team that you can move for a nice simple deal. Grichuk's a veteran outfielder. He can go play on teams that they will take that, especially needing depth down the line, down the stretch in the season. There's just no reason to send out a struggling Randal Grichuk when you have so much outfield young guy depth that you want to check out. And if you want to bet on the future of the Colorado Rockies or get into any of the betting action that you want, you got to go to betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. from pro football, college bowl season. I think my alma mater is getting ready to go, so maybe we'll see what's going on there with the old Bobcats, but baseball future bets, hockey as well. Everything you can imagine, they got it at betonline.net. They got sports podcasts. You can find those at betonline as well. And they're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. You can head to the website. That's betonline.net today. You can also use your mobile device to learn more about the lines, odds, trends, all the good stuff going on at betonline.net. Bet online, where the game starts. We're talking about Randal Grichuk here today on the Locked On Rockies podcast, and we're reading from an article here on Purple Row. Skylar Timmons, we just had the case against Randal Grichuk. Let's hear Skylar's viewpoint here on the case for Randal Grichuk, because I before we dive into this, Randal, like I was kind of mentioning, I don't think you're that upset if Grichuk is the starting right fielder. In fact, the potential of Grichuk is really interesting, and him being the kind of utility or bench player or depth piece that the Rockies have decided to keep with, moving on from Connor Joe, moving on from Sam Hilliard, moving on from Garrett Hampson. Grichuk is kind of that piece of the one that's left that isn't the wave of prospects coming up. So there is some upside to him there, and there is some possibility, and the fact that he has the history of power is encouraging. All right, let's read Skylar Timmons here. Purple Row, right? What do we do with Randal Grichuk by Skylar Timmons here? Now let's see. The fact that Randal Grichuk felt a bit unlucky in 2022 was what we've kind of talked about here. When we look at his basic counting stats, he fell close in line with what he did last season in Toronto. The main difference was that his batting average went up and he just struck out a bit more. But overall, it was the same amount of production from Grichuk. If he could just somehow decrease his ground ball numbers, 2023 has the potential to be one of the better seasons of his career. The fact remains that Grichuk is a man that can hit the ball hard and be consistent about it. As pointed out by Thomas Harding in a recent article, Grichuk's average and maximum velocities and his hard hit rate all were among the top 30% among MLB hitters last season, has been consistently among leaders in hard contact measures. Good things happen when you can hit the ball hard, and if Grichuk can incorporate more line drives and fly balls, he's a force to be reckoned with within the Rockies lineup. A notable aspect of the quest to improve was talked about in the article from Harding. Grichuk has spent time with Marucci Sports at a facility in Baton Rouge using computer analysis and data from Baseball Performance. Lab personnel, Grichuk's potential exit velocity comes in at 129.9 miles per hour, which is a record of sorts, while also trying to figure out slight mechanical things that could help Grichuk improve his quality of contact. Working things out in the cage, Grichuk found that he was using a steep swing instead of an uppercut swing, and a fact that was robbing him of good contact that he was looking for. This could explain an uptick in swing and misses in the ground balls because Grichuk must have made an unfavorable adjustment in his swing that hurt him. Ultimately, Marucci worked through a number of different bat designs to find the right fit for Grichuk and get his hands where they need to be. So in any case, Grichuk has made a concerted effort to address his biggest setback in 2022, and I believe science and data can make a big difference for him. That's a really interesting point. This is why we read stuff. This is why we go to and follow the people that really dive into the Rockies and dive into this stuff, because this is the type of 21st century plus baseball grinder mindset. That's exactly what you're looking for in a player like Randal Grichuk. He is addressing his big problem because you can see the potential. If Randal Grichuk is hitting hard hit line drives all over Coors Field, whether they stay in the yard or leave the yard, that is going to be great for the Rockies. That potential upside is massive. Grichuk is supposed to be part of the power. The Rockies aren't on paper. They're not supposed to overwhelm you with some of their power, but they're supposed to have more thump in the lineup. They just haven't gotten that production. Last year, it basically was CJ Cron hitting home runs. Yes, Charlie Blackmon and a handful of people kind of caught up a little bit, but no one was really just an absolute power force other than CJ Cron in the first half of the season. So now if Grichuk can add that power, you're going into your lineup looking with three guys that bring power into the lineup in Chris Bryant, CJ Cron, and Randal Grichuk. That allows then for Ryan McMahon to focus more on doing instead of trying to be a bigger, flashier hitter, he can be a contact hit. He can just be Ryan McMahon and take good at bats and get on base. And then there's the potential of Brendan Rodgers being one of the best hitters in baseball. If you're looking for one of my, we'll talk more about this, but one of my hot early takes is I think Brendan Rodgers could compete for the slugger next year. What you saw from the improvement of Rodgers, what you've seen in his potential is huge. And that is the same with what we can see here with what Skylar was talking about with this data we've seen from hard hit percentages, exit velocities, and things of that nature. If Grichuk can fix the mechanical things and make solid, hard contact with the ball that stays off the ground, it's going to be a good thing with the Rockies, especially without the shift. That's going to be massive for a player like Grichuk if he can just line the ball up, hit it hard to the right spots of the field. No longer are players going to have to deal with these drastic shifts. So if you can just blast hard hit line drive singles up the middle of the field, that's going to be great. If you can hit it into the gaps, if you can punch things around, that is going to be a great resource. And the possibility of Grichuk doing that is there because he has that exit velocity and he has had the history of power in his background before. So if Grichuk comes out and he starts doing that, that is going to complicate things because Grichuk bringing power into this Rockies lineup is something they desperately need. Power is something that is going to be, since they haven't landed the bat, they didn't land one of the big bats yet, or really at all at this point. Who knows? Grichuk coming back and being and that power that they thought they were going to get last year would be huge for the Rockies. Back to Skylar Timmons here. We saw glimpses of the productive aspects of Grichuk's bat throughout the year. For the month of August, he batted .337, .381, .490 with a modest 4 home runs. He then popped 6 homers in September, but produced an abysmal 179 average in 26 games. In July, he drove in 19 runs, but produced a single home run and had a solid line overall. Grichuk just needs to put together all aspects of his approach because he is playing below his power potential, and hopefully Bam Bam Mullins in the research lab can unlock a consistent approach. There is something there. And the best and the part on top of that is if Grichuk bounces back, and the Rockies, and Skylar mentions this too, there's more you should go read his conclusion. You should go read the final thoughts and everything and go read more in that article there on Purple Row. Thank you, Skylar, for writing that. Skylar Timmons. What do we do with Randal Grichuk over there on Purple Row? He just becomes an interesting trade piece. The Rockies have to be willing to trade. If the Rockies are not in contention, if they are not in a striking distance for the wild card, the Rockies have to be willing to part with their veterans at the deadline, especially if they are playing well. We'll dive into the live chat answer to this question. I'm also going to answer a question that I got on YouTube yesterday, and I think I've seen it before. And I want to try to calm this viewer's nerves here because it's an interesting one. It's one that I didn't expect, but it's clearly something that might be on the minds of this Rockies fan. So we'll talk about that. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you about the National Highway Traffic Safety Admission and their drive to stop drunk driving. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. Few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and the people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it at home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that can happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride, and it only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day. You can check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast for your second listen of the day. Stay up to date with all things in the world of sports. Hart in the live chat says, what do you think of the Connor Joe trade? We did a full episode if you want more in-depth details, but just to kind of summarize and kind of to circle back, it was a bummer, but a necessary move for the Colorado Rockies with Connor Joe's struggles in the second half of the season, with the young prospects, with Randal Grichuk and Chris Bryant and all these other pieces and things of that nature. Connor Joe lost his spot on the team. He now gets to go to a Pirates team where he should be able to get more playing time and continue his major league career, which is great. I am rooting 110% for him. Connor Joe was awesome. Connor Joe's approach at the dish was something that I wish he could teach all the Rockies players on the roster so they could take an approach like he did there. But it was a bummer, but it was something that I believe was the necessary move for the Colorado Rockies. And I wanted to address the concerns of a Rockies fan out there. And it is 13XAM 13. Worrying about the Rockies relocating anytime soon in their lifetime. And this could change, because here's the deal. Rich people can do rich people things. They it's what happens. But I know the city likes the Rockies. They have a stadium that might be old standard wise, but is one that is beloved. And honestly, it's way more likely the city comes together with the Rockies and helps completely redo Coors Field at some point and continue to build that downtown area as the Montforts buy up property around. The Colorado Rockies are going nowhere anytime soon. Things would have to drastically change. This is a team that has top 10 numbers in attendance. This is a team that they have radio deals. They have TV deals. They have they are willing to spend money to bring in a Chris Bryant. They have drafted and developed talent. This is a team that could be more of a shining star, and the Rockies know that, but they haven't been willing to fully invest in that because it's still paying off so well as the team is. So I think the relationship between the Rockies and I think the Montforts, buying property around, the Montforts opening up McGregor Square and things of that nature should kind of put your mind at ease there if you are worried about the Rockies relocating anytime soon. This is a team that I would imagine is not. They might be young in terms of expansion wise, but they don't face nearly the challenges that other teams face that have had to talk about relocating. I mean, there's frustrations with the front office and things of that nature, but they're still kind of young in the grand scheme of things too. So could things change? Sure. Will they? If you're asking me, the question was, do I think that's going to happen? I would be absolutely shocked at any point if the Rockies were even considering relocating out of Colorado. Folks, thank you so much for checking us out today. This has been the Locked On Rockies podcast, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, it is the right place to be. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can also find us here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel and be part of the live show, just like Hart and Nicholas Delvo were today. And you can find us anytime you like on your favorite streaming service. You can follow us on Twitter at LO Rockies. You can follow me at Paul Holden 33. And folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.